Good day, everyone. My name is Stephen McAllister. I'm the Senior Health and Safety Advisor with the Certification Training Unit at WorkplaceNL. What we're here to cover today is the introduction to the new Supervisor Health and Safety Standard and what you need to know. Before we proceed, we start every session with a safety moment, so I'll go through our safety moment. What we're going to cover off today is driving safety. When driving a vehicle for transportation during work, the vehicle itself is considered a workplace. The following safety tips should be followed whenever a worker is asked to drive. Inspect your vehicle before leaving on your journey. Check such things as tire pressure, working headlights and signals, sufficient levels of gas and windshield washer fluid, availability of first aid kits, and fire extinguishers. Report all vehicle defects to your supervisor or employer. Ensure that the vehicle is not overloaded and that you have good visual clearance in all directions. Do not exceed the safe seating capacity of the vehicle as stated by the manufacturer. Ensure that each passenger has at least 41 centimeters or 16 inches of seating space. While driving, follow posted speed limits, wear your seatbelt, do not use your phone or other mobile device. As well, correct unsafe conditions immediately and report them to your supervisor. Serving approximately 13,000 injured workers and more than 19,000 employers, WorkplaceNL is an employer-funded, no-fault insurance system that promotes safe and healthy workplaces, provides return-to-work programs, and offers fair compensation to injured workers and their dependents. Prevention Services is made up of a group of health and safety professionals that focus on promoting occupational health and safety education and awareness with employers and employees in our province. Some of the services we provide include working with employers with high claims costs to help them reduce injuries at their workplaces, provide statistics on employer performance and other measures of safety, developing OHS resources, publications, and workshops, webinars for workplaces, developing training standards, approving training programs for certification, and certifying persons who meet the standards, assisting OHS committees, worker health and safety representatives and designates to increase the effectiveness of their duties, and providing direction to employers for the prevention of occupational disease and musculoskeletal injuries. Before we begin, some housekeeping items need to be reviewed. First of all, please send a message and let me know if you're not hearing me properly. We'll try to resolve it from our end. Micro breaks. Every 30 minutes or so, we'll ask you to stand and stretch. This gives your body the opportunity to change postures and get the blood moving throughout your body. Keep in mind keep the stretches simple and do not overexert yourself. Asking questions is always encouraged. Type them into your chat window and I will respond verbally to your question at the end of the presentation. Provide a little detail so I'll know in which slide you are referring to. If we run out of time, I will answer your questions in an email. For your evaluation, we encourage everyone to complete the evaluation that will be sent to you by email following the presentation. Feedback helps us to develop better and more meaningful workshops and webinars. You may also list any future topics of interest. So what is the one thing you would like to take away from this webinar today? Type in your response in the text box. Responses need not be long or complicated. You may respond to the comments and responses that are coming in. So as we get these, we will respond to them and respond back to them. Keep in mind, you may not be able to respond to all comments and questions. So for those comments we can't get to, we will respond to them by email. So the learning outcomes we have for today are to provide an overview of the background behind the standard, review the draft standard, and propose timelines. So WorkplaceNL is responsible for the development and administration of training standards as outlined in the legislation. We presently control eight training standards. Those are confined space entry, fall protection, first aid, mines rescue, occupational health and safety committee, worker rep designate, traffic control person, surface attendant for commercial diving, and power line hazards. The certification training standard for managers and supervisors was identified in the 2015-2017 prevention strategy to improve a supervisor's knowledge, skill, and competency as it pertains to occupational health and safety. This was substantiated in the Statutory Review Committee's 2013 report. The report concluded that the continued development and implementation of certification training standards is extremely important to ensure future decline in the province's injury rate. The Statutory Review Committee specifically recommended that WorkplaceNL, in collaboration with its stakeholders, develop a supervisor training standard to help ensure fulfillment of the prevention mandate. So what is a supervisor? The Newfoundland and Labrador Occupational Health and Safety Act in Section 2 defines a supervisor as a person authorized or designated by an employer to exercise direction and control over workers of the employer. So how many supervisors are there? Although we currently have no concrete data to indicate an exact number of supervisors in our province, we can provide an estimate based on overall employment data. So as of December 31st, 2015, there were 236,000 people employed in Newfoundland and Labrador. So when you look at those numbers, if you have a supervisor ratio of 1 supervisor to every 5 employees, you're looking at 47,200 supervisors. If the ratio was 1 to 10, you'd look at 23,600 supervisors. And if the ratio was 1 supervisor to 20 employees, 11,800 supervisors. So that is a significant number of supervisors out there. Supervisors are often hired or promoted not knowing their legislative roles and responsibilities and not having the tool sets to perform necessary risk assessments in order to implement hazard controls to adequately protect their workers. An example of where this happened and how the legislation is getting more teeth is the Metron construction case. On December 25th, 2009, 5 men fell 13 stories from a swing stage at a Toronto apartment building. 4 men were killed and 1 seriously injured. Criminal and OHS Act charges were laid against Metron Construction, Metron's president, Metron's project manager, Vadim Kazanelson. Also, OHS Act charges were laid against the owner of the swing stage, Swing and Staff Inc., and its principal. Of all these charges, only the criminal negligence charges against Mr. Kazanelson have proceeded to trial. The OHS charges have not yet been dealt with. So on June 26, 2015, Mr. Kazanelson was convicted of 4 counts of criminal negligence causing death and 1 count of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. And on October 16, 2015, Mr. Kazanelson was sentenced to 3.5 years in jail. In delivering its decision, the court found Mr. Kazanelson morally blameworthy because he knew that there was not enough fall protection for all of the workers and the swing stage did not have markings detailing its load-bearing capacity. So this sentence does 2 things. It sets a precedence and it will help add meaning to the limited existing case law. And as a subnote to this, Mr. Kazanelson has appealed his conviction. So although the OH&S Act and regulations outline specific duties that a supervisor must perform, there's no mention of mandatory training programs that a supervisor must complete. Therefore, WorkplaceNL is recommending a training standard that will provide supervisors with the information they need to fulfill their legislative responsibilities. This training standard will be WorkplaceNL's first voluntary training standard. Although a voluntary standard is a departure from our typical certification training programs, it is extremely important to provide guidance to ensure knowledgeable and competent supervisors throughout workplaces of our province. So for the timeline, the cross-jurisdictional review was completed in the first quarter of 2016. Stakeholder consultation was completed in the second quarter of 2016. Board approval of the standard was received on December 5th, 2016. The final stages of curriculum development are being completed, and we are hoping to start trainer approval within the second quarter. A jurisdictional comparison verified that only Ontario and the Northwest Territories have specific legislative requirements requiring OHS training of all supervisors. 2 provinces, Alberta and the Yukon, have training requirements for supervisors associated with specific industries, Alberta for oil and gas and the Yukon for mining. Despite a lack of legislation, most worker compensation boards have developed some form of supervisor safety awareness. Other reputable organizations such as the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, various safety councils, construction safety associations, and numerous other industry safety sector associations have also developed safety supervisor training programs to address the education gap for supervisors. Information gathered from stakeholder consultation was valuable in developing the learning objectives and course content for the Supervisor Health and Safety Standard. To ensure stakeholders' participation, invitations were sent to the following groups: the OHS branch of ServiceNL, Newfoundland and Labrador Federation of Labor, the Newfoundland and Labrador Employers Council, Newfoundland and Labrador Construction Safety Association, the Municipal Safety Council of Newfoundland and Labrador, Forestry Safety Association of Newfoundland and Labrador, the Labour Program, OHS Human Resources and Skills Development Canada, and the Canadian Society of Safety Engineers Avalon Chapter. In addition to meeting with the above stakeholders, an online survey tool was utilized to gather information from workplace-approved training providers. Training providers were able to provide tremendous insight into the current needs of industry and provide recommendations as to course content. The information gathered during the consultation phase helped to guide the finalization of the training standard and the associated learning objectives for the Supervisor Health and Safety curriculum. So who does this standard apply to? Excuse me. A person who meets the definition of supervisor under Section 2 of the Newfoundland and Labrador OHS Act, which again is a person authorized or designated by an employer to exercise direction and control over workers of the employer. It applies to an employer who employs a person as a supervisor, and it applies to a person who is delivering a Supervisor Health and Safety certification training program. So there have been 10 identified learning modules outlined for the Supervisor Health and Safety Certification Training Standard. Each module will have outlined learning objectives. The overall goal will be to demonstrate a supervisor's roles and responsibilities under each module. So Module 1 will be the health and safety legislation, which deals with the internal responsibility system and the applicable legislation. Module number 2 is your OH&S programs, which are dealing with the principles of occupational health and safety and then the elements of your program manual. Hazard recognition and evaluation and control systems. Here you will be dealing with the processes involved in conducting hazard assessments and the tools used to assist you in that process. Element number 4, or module 4, sorry, is the occupational health and hygiene section. Roles and responsibilities for health and hygiene, different hazards associated to health and hygiene are covered under this module. Module number 5 is workplace inspections. Here you'll be dealing with the different types of inspections and on how to develop an inspection process. Module 6 will be dealing with emergency preparedness and response, and here you'll go through the roles and responsibilities and the emergency response plans. Module 7 is incident investigations. Here you'll be covering off why we investigate incidents and who should be investigating those incidents. Module 8 is disability management. Here we're going to be dealing with the early, safe, and return to work, and as well as the supervisor's role in that early and safe return to work. Module 9 is your OHS program evaluation. Here we will be discussing leading and lagging indicators as well as audits. And last but not least, module number 10 is Prime, and here we'll be speaking about the components of Prime and going through the employer categories. Training providers must apply and be approved by WorkplaceNL to deliver the Supervisor Health and Safety Certification training. This is separate from the trainer approval process, which is covered later. Keep in mind that a training provider may also be a trainer. WorkplaceNL may approve and register supervisor health and safety training providers if they satisfy criteria with respect to competent supervisor safety trainers, delivery of supervisor safety certification training that meets the supervisor safety certification training standard, documentation, record keeping, and adherence to administrative requirements of WorkplaceNL, and maintaining program integrity and delivery. In order for supervisor health and safety training providers to maintain approval, they must ensure that each trainer is delivering a minimum of 1 certification training program in a calendar year. All trainers must meet the following qualifications: high school diploma or equivalent, OHS education and training, which can include safety designation and or post-secondary OHS certificate or diploma. Must have adult education and experience. That can be 2 consecutive years of adult education with 3 sessions per year, and or an adult teaching certificate from a recognized teaching institution. They must have a current standard certification, completion of the prescribed WorkplaceNL's trainer's course, which will be a review of the curriculum, and then successful completion of a trainer assessment. Maximum class size will not exceed 15 participants. Training duration must be a minimum of 16 hours and consist of theory and practical training. And the expectation is the 16 hours is spread into 2 8-hour days. Any deviation from the expected norm will have to have prior approval from WorkplaceNL. Changes to curriculum must be approved by WorkplaceNL, and adult learning principles must be adhered to. Training must be designed for the general audience and have a high school comprehension level, with the exception of necessary technical terms. Plain language should always be used and accommodations made for varying levels of literacy. Learning guides and workbooks that are based on the learning outcomes of the Supervisor Health and Safety Certification Training Standard. Reference materials are kept by participants after the successful completion of the training program for support and workplace activities. And programs must involve a variety of learning activities that are appropriate and suitable for all learners, such as case studies, role plays, simulations, brainstorming, group discussions, and self-evaluation and feedback. Trainers must conduct ongoing evaluation throughout the training to ensure participant learning outcomes are achieved. Participants must complete a knowledge check to confirm their knowledge and understanding of the material covered. WorkplaceNL will monitor the effectiveness of training and training provider activities by any or all of the following: reviewing participant evaluation forms, receiving and responding to concerns, reviewing administrative processes used by supervisor safety training providers and trainers, and monitoring performance of supervisor safety training providers and trainers through the completion of random quality assurance audits or other appropriate means. Supervisor safety training providers must maintain records of trainers and supervisor health and safety certification training programs by collecting and submitting training records as prescribed through WorkplaceNL's certification training registry, collecting and maintaining records of competent and qualified supervisor health and safety trainers, including their names and contact information, high school diploma or equivalent, training experience, records of training, and background in OHS education and training. Developing and implementing internal auditing systems to ensure trainers are following the supervisor health and safety training standard. Providing WorkplaceNL with participants' evaluations for data analysis and quality assurance purposes. Submitting any information regarding the supervisor health and safety certification training program to WorkplaceNL as a means of measuring the effectiveness of the standard and assisting WorkplaceNL in meeting its objectives. And follow WorkplaceNL's administration processes for delivering of certification training. So if a training provider elects to issue a certificate of attendance to her participants, the document must clearly indicate the type of certification training, the name of the training provider and trainer, the participant's name, date of successful completion, and date of expiry. Currently on the screen you will see a sample of what the certificate looks like within the certification training registry. The official record of certification will always be housed in the WorkplaceNL certification training registry. So while employers or training providers are allowed to issue certificates, the official record will still be the certification training registry. So how do you view and print your completion certificates? You can access the WorkplaceNL certification training registry at ctr.bluedrop.io. You would select sign in in the top right hand corner. Enter your email address, mobile number, or CTR number, and then your password. Scroll down past your learning profile information to your learning records section. From the learning records section, you are able to view completed training records, date of completion, and expiry date. Select print records to print a listing of all your training record information. Select certificate to print a completion certificate specific to a unique training record. Select renew to go to the public marketplace to search for available classes. You also have the option of downloading the mobile app to your mobile device and viewing your certificates with the ability to email your learning profile to your employer. Recertification is required every 3 years from the date of initial certification. It is the responsibility of the certificate holder to register and participate in a recertification program. To ensure the supervisor health and safety training standard is met and maintained, WorkplaceNL will conduct random quality assurance audits. These audits will help to determine if training providers and their trainers are adhering to the contents of the standard. The status of a certified training provider or trainer may be revoked or suspended if WorkplaceNL has reason to believe the above certification training standard is not being met. So to summarize, supervisors have a responsibility to protect workers and keep the workplace safe. To achieve these obligations, a supervisor should have a general understanding of occupational health and safety management. This standard provides minimum criteria for the development and delivery of a supervisor safety certification training program. At this point, questions will be received and be responded to. Again, please remember to take the time to complete the evaluation, which will be emailed out to you after this webinar. Your feedback is important to us. Some upcoming workshops and webinars. This March, we're doing a Controlling the Risk of MSI workshop, as well as a webinar was conducted for preventing serious injury. For a complete list of dates, ensure you go to our website at the below link. These are the workshops and webinars that WorkplaceNL offers to the public for free, and a full list is available at that link below, so you can register online for these. To receive updated information on prevention services, free workshop and webinar offerings, don't miss out. Subscribe today. If you haven't already subscribed to our mailing list, you can do so by visiting www.workplacenl.ca or by visiting the WorkplaceNL booth to provide your email address. Your feedback is important. Please take time to complete the evaluation. Thank you. Have a great day.